What's up, guys? Keyshawn Uchiha here. This will be a reboot of What If I Was in SCP Foundation. Now, this will be part 1 and 2 of me, pretty much the Galaxy God, aka, as you know, the Uchiha, the planet leader of the, or you could say the king of the Uchihas, well known, infamously of my history bloodlines, and quite crazy. So, how would I do in the SCP Foundation? And what object would I be? And what the hell would I do in the SCP Foundation? Let's find out. Well, how are we going to start this off? We start off with pretty much Kishan Uchiha appearing pretty much in a town where we're going to say one of the SCPs, the Broken God, which y'all know the number 2, is pretty much redoing its cycle and pretty much trying to consume and become a big part again and redo the same objects again. This is where the pretty much the Broken God Church is pretty much getting absorbed in. The SCP Foundation is trying to stop the incident to happen. This is where I appear and pretty much snap my finger and erase it from existence. Now this is not no more of the Broken God. Now I know what you're thinking. Will this affect the SCP Foundation universe, and will this ever be a part of the SCP Foundation universe? Yes, and kinda no, you could say. But you can only find out. Let's see. Let's continue then. Now, this is where, of course, I will peer pretty much look around and say, huh, well, that was easy. Which pretty much this is where a field agent operative will point a gun and says to freeze, which I look at him and say, whoa, calm down. Don't shoot at me. Which pretty much the SCP, which the field agent will pretty much arrest me and pretty much take me to the SCP Foundation, which I pretty much tell them that I'm not no I'm not no god or anything. I didn't do anything at all. And if I was a god, would I do this? Which I pretty much accidentally show out a fire, a unique fire that's blue, red, and pretty much all the colors. Which I say, ooh. Now, this is where, of course, the higher ups and the SCP higher ups and the special down unit will pretty much take a look upon me. Now, of course, this is where I'll be continue getting interrogated, and this is where Dr. Alice will come in. She pretty much don't exist in the SCP universe, but we're gonna say she exists in this one. Now, Dr. Alice will ask me a bunch of questions, which I pretty much will look down and say, Dr. Alice, quick question, which she pretty much is about to say that she's the one who asked the question. I pretty much tell her that, have you ever had a feeling that you did something great and you achieved everything? Have you ever thought of, have you ever had dreams of you having your own facility with soldiers and stuff and you creating things for the greater good of the earth? Which she keeps quiet and listens. And everybody else who is listening to the recording begins to listen too. Well, I'm here to tell you, Dr. Alice, that I am from many dimensions, timeline, rifts. But there's one thing I do know. Me and you, Dr. Alice, is bound by each other. If you simply die, then I can't exist in this world. You are my anchor and you are my ground. You are also the life support that keeps me here. So if you die, I can't do anything. And I have to only ask you permission to do things. I can't do nothing on my own. Which, this is where Dr. Ellis is intrigued and asks why that's so. I begin to talk to Dr. Ellis and explain to her that pretty much I am the Galaxy God. Or formerly, my name is Kishan Uchiha. Which, pretty much, she is more intrigued and more. Which, she asks me for the more questions. I begin to explain to her that pretty much she is, well, pretty much a phenomenon herself, which pretty much she created a, a, a religion that's pretty much gone, is forgiven for everything, and was here but not here at the same time. Is the galaxy God or the galaxy heaven kingdom, which she's the queen there. At first, she looks hesitant and confused of what do you mean she's the queen there? Which I explained to her the truth of everything. Explained that she's pretty much the protector of humanity and also the savior. I explained to her that she created a facility that's exist but non-exist in the world. And I begin to explain to her that she have created many things that can help the human race, such as a cure for cancer and so forth, so forth. Now, Dr. Alice is very confused and asks me, is it really true that she can command me? Which I pretty much smile and says, of course. And tell her that she can test out whatever time. Now, of course, this is where I'd be put into a cell. I pretty much has to wait, which I'm pretty much just laying there and falling asleep. Now, of course, they have cameras on me watching me, and pretty much Dr. Alice is very confused and intrigued. Which this is where the higher up in the higher SCP Foundation, which the six, you could say, is pretty much thinking about if this is true or not, and begins to give Dr. Alice permission and higher clearance to pretty much to ask me to pretty much erase, you could say, pretty much erase a foundation or another organization, and we're gonna say the church, pretty much. Now, this is where Dr. Alice has asked me to erase the church, which I pretty much asked her, are you sure? Which she pretty much says, yeah. Now, this is where I snap my finger and pretty much erase the church. Now, of course, the church is erased and everything else about it, everything else is erased. And the people who do know about the church is pretty much, is pretty much, is erased from their mind, which no one can remember except for Dr. Alice. Which Dr. Alice asks, did you erase it? Which I pretty much look at Dr. Alice and say, yeah, it's erased. But pretty much when it's erased, no one can remember it. Only you, Dr. Alice, can remember the church. And all the files and stuff is completely gone. So no one can remember it. Remember the church and their devious act of creating the sisters and stuff. They're all erased, including the three sisters. Which pretty much, this is where Dr. Alice looks. And she realized that the church is gone. Which this is where she goes to the higher ups and tells them, which the higher ups don't even believe Dr. Alice at first, but they begin to do believe her, because one interesting part, Dr. Alice has a file of the broken church. Well, of the church. And pretty much, this is where they realize that I am curator class. And they place me as a curator class, but they later switch me into a safe. And they name me as SCP-0, the Galaxy God. Now, this is where, of course, I pretty much sits down and begins to eat food and pretty much drink some nice tea. Now, this is where Dr. Alice asks me more questions of more about herself, and I begins to tell her the truth, which I cannot lie to her. I begins to explain to her that each dimensional rift and portals and stuff and each timelines are all connected in one or similar ways, such as other SCPs coming in your world, and such as SCPs can get erased, and that world can get erased as well. I begin to explain to her about time travel, and she created a time travel thing which she can only access. And she begins to ask more questions about my origins. I explained to her that my origins is pretty much as any other origin of a god, getting created by something else. But me, I didn't get created by someone else. I was created by my own self, as the universe was creating itself. As I am everything, but not at the same time. I am everyone, but not at the same time. I feel, but I don't feel. Which Dr. Alice is most curious about. This is where Dr. Alice begins to says that's it, and I say okay. Now, of course, this is where a breach is at, and I'm just gonna say, like, I'm at the site where pretty much the plague doctor is at with the old man. Now, this is where the old man plague doctor is pretty much escaped. It pretty much is coming to attack. Now, of course, this is where I appear to the plague doctor and flick him in the head and pretty much knocks him out. Now, of course, this is where the old man is coming and pretty much stands still, which I looks at the old man and begins to smile with a grin. Now, the old man, what is happening to the old man right now? The SCP old man? Pretty much, I have put him in a genjutsu, where a world where he is in a single chair sitting down. He can't do anything, and there's 1,000 humans grinning and pointing at him, with eyes pointing at him, constantly pointing at him. Now, this is where he constantly goes and try to touch the humans, try to leave, but it just repeats the same thing over and over again. And this is where the old man is pretty much falls to the ground and begins to scream frantically and begins to go back in his cell and don't move and freaks out in fear of me. This is where Dr. Alice asks me what I did to the both of them. I simply tells her that I knocked out the doctor, but for the old man, I gave him a much worse fate than death. An endless cycle in his mind where he can't do anything, and 1,000 people stares at him and grins. Which Dr. Alice is realized that I can pretty much put down and hold down other SCPs and pretty much can just make them not do anything or nullify them or erase them. This is where Dr. Alice tells me to pretty much not to use my power unless it's necessary, and I tell her, okay, now this is part 1, reboot part 1 of What If I Was in the SCP Foundation. I'm sorry that this is not a part 2, but this is going to be a part 1 because I want to save the part 2 for later on. But I'm Keishan Ochia, thanks for watching, and peace out. And just get this up to like 30 likes, and I will make a part 3 and 2 together, possibly. But I'm Keishan Ochia, thanks for watching, and peace out.
It looks like you lost another one.